When we try to change ourselves, others can be our greatest support or worst enemy. In Habit 4, we discover how to change ourselves without depending on other people. And in doing so, we begin to unlock the real sources of our power. Habit 4. Think win-win. Most people do not understand the difference between the competitive and the cooperative mode, says Sean Covey in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you always want to win at everything, then you are living in the competitive mode. And if you always try to cooperate with everyone around you, then you're living in the cooperative mode. We need to shift from the competitive mode to the cooperative mode. Only then will we get the help that we need to make the changes we desire. This habit will teach us how to shift from the competitive mode to the cooperative mode. Habit No. 4 is about thinking in terms of a win-win for everybody involved. But how many of us think like that? Most of us have experienced friends who always try to outsmart us, always trying to gain the upper hand. They want to win, even at the cost of your loss. When they negotiate, they'll take anything that they can get, leaving you with nothing. How many of us have been stuck in such relationships where it was always a lose-lose situation? Sometimes we may be forced to comply, because we do want to hurt the feelings of our friends, but we secretly resent them. Other times, we may argue with them until we get what we want. But later, when we get it, we realize that it wasn't worth the trouble. What we really want is not something that we got by hurting someone else or being hurtful to them. And now let's examine the first part of Habit 4. Think win-win. In the rare win-win situation, both parties feel that they have received more than they gave. For example, imagine that you are working on a team project, and you have spent hours on research and writing. Your teammate hasn't contributed anything. Now it's time to divide up the remaining work. Do you think it is fair to ask your teammate to do twice as much as you because they didn't contribute anything before? You might think, that's only fair. But is it possible for you to get more than you give and still maintain a positive relationship? Most people don't know how to do this. They live in the competitive mode and think of every situation as a win-lose game. However, if you want to succeed in life and never lose anyone in the process, you need to learn how to approach every interaction, assuming that it will be a win. A win-win situation is one in which both parties feel satisfied that they have received more than they gave. Therefore, you will never resort to bullying, manipulation, aggression, or anything like that. Also, you woe and complain about giving more than you receive, because you know that the only way for you to get more is to give more. And that's the mindset you should have whenever you enter into any kind of negotiation. You should aim to give as much as you possibly can, because in doing so, you will get back more than you ever imagined. But what if the other person doesn't play fair? If they are simply trying to take advantage of you, then you must distance yourself from that kind of person. However, if they also want to give as much as they can, then you have found a partner with whom you can build great things. Both of you will be satisfied with the results of your cooperation, and you will want to keep working together. To achieve win-win-win-wins, we must shift our paradigm from the competitive mode to the cooperative mode. This requires us to have a different set of rules. The competitive rule is, if I win, you lose. But the cooperative rule is, I can't win unless you win too. These rules determine the type of behavior that we will exhibit in a particular situation. If we stick to the first rule, we'll act competitively. And if we follow the second rule, we'll act cooperatively. But how can we ensure that we are following the right rule? This brings us to the next part of Habit 4. Begin with a crop of character. We cannot simply decide to act cooperatively. That's not how human beings work. Our actions are determined by our character, and our character is determined by our principles, values, and beliefs. To change our character, we must first strengthen our principles, values, and beliefs. And that's why this habit emphasizes beginning with a crop of character. If we have the right set of principles, values, and beliefs, we will act accordingly. For example, if we believe that life is a cooperative game, then we will act cooperatively. But if we believe that life is a competitive game, then we will act competitively. We are not born with principles, values, and beliefs that predispose us to think and behave cooperatively. On the contrary, we are born selfish and Over time, we develop certain values and beliefs based on the environment in which we are raised. So to change our character, we must consciously seek out experiences that reinforce the principles, values, and beliefs that we wish to abide by. As Sean Covey said, our character is the sum total of our choices. Every choice adds up to our character. So when we make choices that are consistent with the principles, values, and beliefs that we want to live by, we are strengthening our character and making it more likely that we will act in accordance with those principles, values, and beliefs. To make these principles, values, and beliefs stronger, we can use a variety of methods. One is to memorize scriptures that express the principles that we want to follow. By committing these words to memory, we remind ourselves of them every time we recite them. Another method is to write them down. When we write something down, we are engaging our senses and emotions, which makes it more memorable. We can also share these principles, values, and beliefs with others. When we verbalize them, we are more likely to internalize them. Finally, we can put them into practice. The best way to make our principles, values, and beliefs stronger is to live by them. When we act in accordance with our principles, values, and beliefs, we are reinforcing them and making it more likely that we will continue to do so in the future. Now, let's examine the last part of habit 4. Think in terms of abundant resources. We tend to think in terms of scarcity rather than abundance. For example, when we are talking about money, we often say, "I don't have enough money." Or when we are talking about time, we often say, "I don't have enough time." By focusing on what we don't have, we are constantly reminding ourselves that there isn't enough to go around, and that creates a scarcity mentality. This scarcity mentality leads to competition rather than cooperation. If we believe that there isn't enough for everyone, then we are more likely to try to hoard what we do have. But what if we shifted our focus from scarcity to abundance? If we believe that there is plenty to go around, then we are more likely to be generous and willing to share. This does not mean that we become naive and trusting. It simply means that we recognize that there is more than enough for everyone, and that allows us to focus on win-win solutions rather than zero-sum games. We can train ourselves to think in terms of abundant resources by changing the language we use. Instead of saying "I don't have enough money," we can say "there is enough money out there for me to make a lot more." When we start thinking in terms of abundance, we are more likely to be open to sharing what we have with others. We are also more likely to be optimistic about the future and believe that good things are just around the corner. As we have seen, the fourth habit is to think in terms of win-win. This means finding solutions that benefit both parties involved in a situation. To make this possible, we must first strengthen our principles, values, and beliefs through daily choices and actions. Then we must focus on abundance rather than scarcity. When we do this, we are more likely to find win-win solutions that benefit everyone involved. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one.